Now let's learn about the filter method, which, as we learned before, is used to filter for elements that satisfy a certain condition. And how do we specify such a condition? Well, you guessed it, we use a callback function again. So let's again work with our movements. And so now the filter array. And once again, I will start with a regular function. And just like the other callback functions, like in map and for each, this one also gets access to the current array element as well as the index and the entire array. But let's only work with the current element here, which in filter is usually all that we need. Okay, now what we want to do here is to create an array of the deposits. So let's actually write that. So deposits, and deposits are only the movements that are above 0. So we already know that, right? Let's indeed take a look at the movements here. So here there are, and so we want to filter out these negative values. And so that condition is so that only the values that pass the condition will then make it into the new array. And passing that condition means that it's true. So we will again return something here. And here the trick is that we return a Boolean value. And so in this case, all we need to do is to say the current movement greater than 0. And that's it. And so now only the array elements for which this condition is true will make it into the deposits array. All the other ones will simply get filtered out. So they will not be included in this deposits array. Okay, and in fact, we only get the positive values now. Beautiful. And that's actually it. That's really simple, right? So just as I told you, if you know how to use the callback function correctly, and if you know how and why it works, then all of these methods become really, really simple. And once more, I also want to use the for off loop here again, so that you can appreciate the difference. And that's very simple. So we need, of course, the same condition. So if the current movement is greater than 0, then we want to push the current element into a new array. So we need to create that here, deposits for, and start again with an empty array. And so in this case, we simply push it there. So we push the current movement. And so let's take a look now. And as expected, we get the same result. And so you could again ask, what is the big difference here? Like, what's the big deal? And why not just use the for loop for everything? And the reason for that is, again, the push that exists in JavaScript for using more functional code like this. But there's also a more practical implication here. And that's because we can actually chain all of these methods together. So basically use them all one after another to build a big final result. So a bit similar, in fact, to what we did here in our application right here. But here we mixed string methods with array methods. But later on, we will do like big chains only with array methods. And that would be completely impossible using the for loop. So that's another big advantage of using the methods instead of the regular for loop. Now, anyway, I have just another small challenge for you here, which is to create an array of the withdrawals. So withdrawals like this. So I want you to create this array without looking at the code we already wrote. And so the withdrawals should only include the negative numbers here. So pause the video now for a minute and please try to write this code on your own. Okay, so hopefully you did that. And so it is movement and again dot filter And now I will use an arrow function here. So I will leave this one with the regular one, and now an arrow function. Okay, and now mof less than 0, and that's it. This is our condition, and never forget that this one is actually returned here. So again, it is like having return written here. And so this is why this works. Let's log it to the console. And yeah, only the negative numbers remain now. All the positive ones got the result of false here in this condition, and so therefore they were not included in the withdrawals array. And again, these callback function here also get access to the current index and the whole array. And I will just leave it here, but I never used these in my life ever in the filter method. Okay, so this was the second of the data transformation methods. So that's map, filter, and reduce. And so in the next video, we will then talk about reduce.